the starting of the week. At Summit Talks you'll hear them speak. It's only Monday. Negotiations breaking down.
This channel does not promote or encourage any illegal activities. All contents provided by this channel is meant for educational purpose only.
Fight. They just, they've left their families. They've left their houses. Just they want to come here just to fight the Iraqis. But your country is now helping Iraq, right? But why? You see these people? How old is it?
Took a new turn today when American warships shelled and destroyed 2 Iranian oil platforms and then raided another. It was in retaliation for the weekend missile attack by Iran on an American flag.
The Tanker Wars in 1980. The tension between Iran and Iraq arose almost immediately after the latter establishment in 1921, in the aftermath of World War I. The Iranian Revolution of 1978-79, which overthrew the pro-Western government of Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi in favor of the fundamentalist regime led by Shia Muslim clerks Ayatollah Khomeini, was a major turning point. While in Iraq, Saddam Hussein, who became president of Iraq and leader of the country Ba'ath Party in July 1979, relying on the support of his country minority Sunni Muslim population and fear that the spread of Iran's revolution to the Shia would dominate Iraq. Saddam also sought to renegotiate the 1975 border treaties and reclaim control of both sides of the South al-Arab, Iraq's only access point to the Persian Gulf. Saddam decided on a preemptive strike against Iran, citing the country's weakened military as a result of its revolution. Iraqi forces launched airstrike on Iranian air base on September 22, 1980, followed by a ground invasion of the oil-producing border region of Khuzestan. The invasion was initially successful, with Iraq capturing Khomasar and gaining additional territory by November. The Iraqi advance, however, soon came to a halt in the face of the tenacious Iranian resistance, fueled by the addition of revolutionary militia to the regular armed forces. Iran launched a counter-offensive in 1981. With Iran now on the offensive, Iraqi defense fortified, and the war came to a halt along the front that roughly paralleled the border. In comparison to the often bloody fighting on land, where an uneasy stalemate has developed, the Gulf's tanker war has been a mere sideshow. The tanker war, on the other hand, has stimulated international interest due to the involvement of many countries' shippings. It is feared that it will have an impact on global oil exports and price, as well as draw another country into the conflict. The tanker war is a campaign of economic and political sabotage. Iraq attacked ships serving Iranian ports, ostensibly to reduce Iran's oil export, which are transported entirely by sea and help fund Iran's war effort. This is because Iran destroyed Iraq's oil terminal early in the war. No tanker sailed to or from the country, and Iraq's oil exports are now carried out via overland pipeline. Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, on the other hand, back Iraq's war effort. Thus, Iran conducts its own war on shipping serving the Arab side of the Gulf in order to reduce Iraq's import of war materials and to intimidate Gulf states that support Iraq. During the early state of war, Iran trapped or destroyed many Iraqi ships in port. However, Iraq initiated the Gulf Tanker War in 1981 by attacking ships steaming to or from Iranian ports at the Gulf's extreme northern end. Iraq carried on with these attacks until 1984 with no parallel Iranian response at sea. However, in March of that year, Iraq increased the frequency and geographic scope of its attacks by attacking ships serving more southern Iranian points. particularly the oil loading complex at Krang Island. 2 months later, Iran launched its own attacks, turning the tanker war into a two-way exchange.
Hello, my name is Nurul Hazwani binti Fazul, and I will talk about the factor and issue of tanker war. Firstly, the factor that led to tanker war is the anti-shipping campaign during the Iran-Iraq war. Iraq started attacking ships to weaken Iran's fighting capability, initially attacking ships delivering military supplies to the land battlefront and then attacking ships carrying Iranian products. Iran replied by bombing ships belonging to Iraq business partners and countries that had given Iraq money to help fund its war effort. Secondly, the factor of tanker war is campaign of economic attribution and political intimidation. Iraq attacked ships serving Iranian ports largely to reduce Iran oil export, which go entirely by the sea and which help finance Iran war effort because Iran destroyed Iraq's oil terminal early in the war. No tankers steam to or from Iraq's oil export now travel by overland pipeline. Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, however, support Iraq war effort. Iran thus wages its own on shipping serving the Arab side of the Gulf to reduce Iraq imports of war material and to intimidate the Gulf states supporting Iraq. Next, the issue is Iraq declared that all ships going to or from Iranian port in the northern zone of the Gulf were subject to attack. This issue has led to the tanker war. Iraq utilized super helicopter, F-1 Mirage and MiG-23 fighter armed with exhausted anti-ship cruise missiles to enforce their threat. Iranian military mostly kept their firing at sea between 1981 and 1983. Iraq continued this attack into 1984 without a parallel Iranian response at the sea. That's all from me. Let's move to the next presenter.
My name is Linda, and I will be talking about parties involved from the tanker war. So, the tanker war was basically fought between Iran and Iraq, with the United States of America intervening later. So, in 1987, the US began protecting neutral Kuwaiti ships from attack by escorting them through the region. In the same year, an Iraqi jet fired a missile at the USS Stark, which had killed 37 US crew members. Now, it's important to note that the United States did not directly provide Iraq with weapons, although there is substantial amount of circumstantial evidence which support claims that the US government actively encouraged Saddam Hussein to invade Iran. Next, Iraq gained range with the arrival of French Super Étendard combat aircraft, which is armed with exocet missiles. Finally, Iran retaliated. Now, because Iran lacked effective anti-ship cruise missiles between 1984 and 1986, it was forced to employ novel tactics when attacking ships. Besides that, when Iranian attacks became more effective in 1987, Kuwait had asked the US to help protect oil tankers in the area. Now, this made Kuwaiti tankers eligible for US Navy escorts by reflagging them, which made the US ships that could be escorted by the Navy, and it also made shipping to and from neutral Gulf countries safe. Lastly, neutral Kuwait asked the rest of the world to protect its shipping interests in the Gulf, which results in the reflagging of Kuwaiti tankers. Responding, the USSR is the first country to do so, and the US leads the rest of the world in an effort to keep the Soviets out of the Gulf. That's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, so we will continue with the recommendation of Tanker War 1981. In 1984, Iran indeed began to respond to this Iraqi escalation with its own attacks on merchant shipping linked to Iraq, including Gulf state and the other international fleet shipping. Iranian strategy aimed at punishing Iraq and its Gulf allies while at the same compelling Iraq to desist from its anti-shipping campaign. Okay, so for the first one is lacking the sophisticated exhausted system. The Iranians relied on a range of smaller pellets weapons such as AS-12S and Mavericks. The large size of oil tanker enables such vessels to generally sustain the Iranian strikes, mostly not sink, but accommodation block proved vulnerable, and when attack resulted in immense casualties. Other than that, it was not until 1987 the Iranians began to deploy an effective dedicated anti-shipping missiles in the form of the Chinese CSSC-2 Swarm missile. So next, American intervention ultimately helped contain Iranian anti-shipping activities, ensure freedom of movement for international shipping in the Gulf, and eventually also increased pressure on Tehran to seek peace with its neighbor. Ultimately, the tanker war did not lead to the closing of the Strait of Hormuz, nor did it significantly impact oil export from the Gulf or result in sustained increases in the price of oil. According to some estimates, the combined anti-shipping campaign of both Iran and Iraq never disrupted more than 2% of ships in the Gulf. Since this battle in the 1980s, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard has invested heavily in enriched anti-shipping capabilities, including small submarine, mines, anti-shipping weaponry, and large number of fast attack boats geared towards swarming tactics. The threat of international shipping and freedom of movement through the Strait of Hormuz remain ever present. However, in the face of dedicated US and international countermeasures, the ability of Iran to close the strait for long periods of time remained tough. So the recommendation can be related with the Iran Air Flight 955 that has been happened in July 3, 1988, which is the flight of an Iranian airliner that was shot down by the missile cruiser USS. Immediately after the event, US officials reported the Iranian airliner had been rapidly receding and was headed towards the victims. In addition, it was stated that Air Flight 955 was not within its normal route. In the end, the US official concluded that it was a tragic and regrettable accident. In explaining how the state-of-the-art cruiser has misidentified Iran Air Flight 955, authorities cited stress and unconscious exhaustion of data. However, US officials also claimed that Iranian aggression played a key role in the accident. In 1990, the US Navy notable awarded Rogers the Legion of Merit for his outstanding service during operation in the Persian Gulf. Some, however, accused the U.S. military of a cover-up. It was noted that investigators failed to interview other near the victims, notably the commander of the USS site, some of whose personnel has identified the aircraft as a commercial plane, as well as the surface warfare commander who had ordered Rogers to change course several hours before the incident. That's all from me. Thank you.
So, in conclusion, the disputes begins in 1984 when France decided to supply a super-attended aircraft that will ultimately increase the range of an anti-shipping exocet strikes. This ship was sent to deploy in Iraq, which then automatically increased the force of military. As a result, in 1985, a Liberian tanker called Neptunia was hit by an Iraq exocet and became the first tanker to ever sink in the history of tank war. To prevent more lives taken, the United Nations Security Council called a Resolution 598, where an immediate ceasefire between Iran and Iraq and ordered both parties to withdraw to their international border. If not being met so, it will cause more damage to both sides, which will eventually lead to more deaths. So, the act of the actors saved thousands of lives. This was proven that interruptions by IGO was proven as one of ways to solve a conflict. As a result, the resolutions then asked the Security General to send a team of observers to monitor the truce until a lasting solution to these disputes could be established. It went into effect on August 8, 1988, thereby eliminating all military activity between the two nations and then eventually end the Iran-Iraq war. Therefore, in the end, both forces finally retreated to the international boundary the following weeks, with Resolution 598 taking effect on August 8. No combat activities between the two nations are allowed, and to further increase the safety of peace to these nations, a UNIMOC deployment of UN troops joined the field and remained on the Iran-Iraq border until 1991. This shows us the functions of IGO and proven one of the objectives, which is to preserve peace through conflict resolution and a better, more international relationship.